Praise you, Father. Kaya mo maging karapat-dapat kami, Panginoon, sa iyong harapan ngayong umaga. We worship you, Lord. When I look into your holiness, when I gaze into your loveliness, when all things that surround become shadows in the light